Volume 1 Juvenile Blood Chapter 27 _ How the Villain is Made. I won't dare to be your enemy again. Forgive me. Xie Wendong looked at Feng Hai coldly and said impassively, The mistake you have made is unforgivable. At this time, Three Eyes also came in from the outside, came behind Feng Hai, kicked it down and said, Do you remember what I said? The 17 knives on my brother are going to turn over on you. With that, the mountain knife added another wound to Feng Hai's back. Feng Haidong's heart huddled together, almost fainted, even rolled to one side to hide. Mouth did not stop, shouting, Brother Dong, I was wrong, don't kill me. In his heart, he hoped that there would be a glimmer of hope. Three Eyes snorted, It's time for you to pay your debts. Three Eyes tilted the tables on both sides with a knife and strolled towards Feng Hai. Bang! Bang! The sound of the impact of the knife on the table was like a heavy hammer hitting Feng Hai in his heart, and he only kept trying to climb forward. Xie Wendong's brothers surrounded the field in a circle, and whenever Feng Hai climbed in front of his eyes, he would kick him away. 21st knife. Three Eyes counted the wounds cut on Feng Hai, and the latter was still trying his best to climb in the field, his blood dripping all over the floor, but he dared not stop because the knife of Three Eyes was right behind him, and as soon as he stopped, the machete would fall on him again. Three Eyes tried to control their strength. Do not intend to let him die too soon. When the Three Eyes cut $35 to the ground, Gao Chong entered the disco, saw Feng Hai on the ground, smiled and said, Brother Three Eyes, leave it to me later. With that, he walked over to Xie Wendong and said, Brother Dong, the shrimps outside have been cleaned up and there are not many of them running. Xie Wendong nodded, stood up in front of Feng Hai, kicked him in the head and said, Feng Hai, I asked you that it was Sister Shui who reported to you last time? At this time, Feng Haizeo nodded after listening to Xie Wendong's words, and then climbed forward. Gao Chong came over and kicked him over. Mad Si lay on the ground and turned over, and finally did not have the strength to get up again. Xie Wendong squatted down and looked at Feng Hai and said, Why did she tell you the news? What's the relationship between you? Feng Hai's eyes were distracted and murmured, Because, no, I used hers. Nudity is still awesome. Threaten her. Please, kill. No. Xie Wendong looked at him with disdain and said to Gao Chong, It's all yours. With a cruel grin on his face, Gao Chong grabbed Feng Hai's hair and said, What? You want to die now? Don't worry, you won't die so soon. Xie Wendong walked out of the 8 gods, and the screams of Feng Hai in the disco faintly came from his ears. The cold night wind blew gently through Xie Wendong's body and could not help but have a cold war. Li Shuang's hatred was hugged, but when he thought of Feng Hai's eyes, Xie Wendong could not find a trace of happiness in his heart. There is only a kind of inexplicable sorrow, not because of Feng Hai's dilemma of life and death, nor because of the seriously injured Li Shuang. He is sad for himself, a kind of reduced sorrow. What's the difference between yourself and the beast now? Even more cruel, torturing the same kind by all means at their disposal. Xie Wendong shook his head hard and threw out the thoughts he thought were boring. I said to myself, I'm not wrong. I'm doing this to protect myself. Volume 1 Juvenile Blood Chapter 27 _ How the Villain is Made. Your friend, protect your brother. But also for their own ideals. Xie Wendong thought of Li Shuang's weak smiling face and 3 eyes of warm-blooded tears. They also followed their own side for the sake of their ideals, and even sacrificed their lives. The ideal in my heart is no longer my own, because it is expected by all the people around me. Thinking of this, Xie Wendong looked firmly into the distance. Although the sky was dark, he knew that the dawn would come eventually. The next day, Feng Hai's body was found with a black card in the middle of a blood-red word, kill. After examination, there were 51 wounds on the body, and the fatal wound was a stab through the heart. The police attached great importance to the case and began to investigate. Xie Wendong knew from Feng Hai that she was a snitch, but she was also out of helplessness. 3 Eyes took the negatives and gave them to Sister Shui without saying anything. But Sister Shui had tears all over her face. Tell Xie Wendong what happened at the beginning. It turned out that Sister Shui and Feng Hai met in the ballroom, chatted very well, and regarded each other as bosom friends. Unexpectedly, during a drink between the two, Feng Hai drugged Sister Shui while she was not paying attention. Then she took the unconscious Sister Shui to a small hotel and took nude photos after the rape. In the future, Mad Hai often threatened Sister Shui with these photos, and it was the same this time. Xie Wendong and others did not punish Shuijia. First, they sympathized with her. The most important Shuijia was the boss of Ghost, and she didn't want to cut off her financial path. After the incident of Gao Chong, Xie Wendong learned that black and white can intersect. If you work in the underworld, you can never become a climate without the support of the White Road. That night, Xie Wendong came to Director Chen's house again in the name of Gao Chong's thanks. After meeting Director Chen, Xie Wendong first apologized for his impolite behavior last time. Director Chen said with a smile, "Forget it, young people, things will always be impulsive." Xie Wendong said a few more polite words, then pointed to Gao Chong and said, "Chen Bureau, this is my brother who was arrested. It's thanks to you." Director Chen looked at Gao Chong and said, "The young man is very energetic." Then he turned to Xie Wendong and said, "My experience tells me that you still have something to do this time?" Xie Wendong secretly praised in his heart. "Awesome," he said with a smile. "Chinju really has a good eye. I was seen through by you at a glance. I do have one more thing to ask for this time. What else do you want? I hope Chun will turn a blind eye to the one-tongue meeting in the future." With that, Xie Wendong took out a paper bag from his bosom, which was bulging, and put it on the coffee table and said, "Of course, we won't let Chun Jiabai help. Please accept it for a little something here." Director Chun looked at the paper bag on the coffee table, paused and said, "In fact, I am very willing to help you young people, but I still have several deputy bureaus looking covetously at my position and letting your friend go in order to be caught by them. I'm afraid in the future. It's not that he doesn't like money, but with his black hat gone, who can give him money?" Xie Wendong thought for a moment and said, "This is easy. Write down the names and addresses of the people who are against you on a piece of paper. I will find someone to talk with them and guarantee that they will make a decision in the future." Volume 1 Juvenile Blood Chapter 27 _ How the Villain is Made. "I won't bother you again." Director Chun was delighted, but he was embarrassed. "They are also my comrades for many years. You won't do anything to them, will you? If something happens to them, someone will suspect me." How could Xie Wendong not understand what he meant, and said with a smile, "Of course not, and this has nothing to do with you. It's a private matter between me and them." Director Chen nodded and said, "Okay, the young man doesn't play at his age, but he is very smart. So where will Wendong be?" "In the south of the border." "Oh," Director Chen said, putting his heart at ease. Bannon was far from the city center and was easy to do without being under the noses of the municipal party committee. "I will say hello to the director there, but for one thing you can't go too far or I can't talk to you." Xie Wendong smiled and said, "Let Chin Bureau rest assured that we will be careful." Director Chin looked at the paper bag on the coffee table and said, "Well, I'll take the money, hehe." Xie Wendong and Gao Chong smiled at each other and were secretly happy. Xie Wendong stood up to bid farewell. "Then Chunju, we will not disturb. I can't help bothering you in the future." Director Chen also stood up and said a few polite words. After Xie Wendong and Xie Wendong left, he quickly opened his purse. There were 20 stacks of 100 yuan bills inside. Director Chen nodded and thought, "It seems that he will not be short of money in the future." After Xie Wendong and Gao Chong walked out of the director's house, Gao Chong said, "Brother Dong, this director will help us in the future?" Xie Wendong said with a smile, "Well, it will be." With that, he took out a pocket tape recorder from his pocket and said, "He can't help even if he doesn't want to help at the critical moment, because his black hat is in our hands." Gao Chong smiled and said, "Brother Dong, we don't have to worry about anything after we catch the director this big fish." Xie Wendong shook his head and said, "No, just like he said, if we make too much trouble, he can't protect us." Oh! Gao Chong was poured cold water on his head. Xie Wendong looked at him with a smile and said, "But we can still do it in the south of the border." The next day, there was good news from the hospital that Li Shuang survived the crisis period safely and would be fine as long as he was recuperated for a few months. The news also put a smile on everyone's face in Wendong meeting. After when Dong Hui leveled the Sickle Gang, it was only natural to occupy the disco of the 8 gods. At a time, the momentum sounded all over the south of the city, and gangsters nearby successively took refuge. With the arrival of Ma Wubai powder and the care of the city bureau, Wendong will start a drug business in the Ghost and 8 gods. Because the purity of white powder is high and the price is equal to the market price, the hermit comes from far and near. 20 gene of white powder sold short within a month, with a net profit of more than 2 million. With the increase in the number of people, the increasingly powerful Wendong society successively wiped out several gangs in the south of the border, taking care of as many as 6 farms. In just a few months, it has become the strongest gang in the south of the border. Every time Wendong will level a gang, he will leave a black card with the red word, "Kill," printed on it. Gangsters call black cards bloodshed. The rise of Wendong society in the south of J-City has also attracted the attention of the gangs in J-City. The Axe Gang exists in name only, but it is taken by the Tiger Gang, and its strength tends to be higher than that of the Brotherhood and the Green Gang. The Brotherhood League was the first to make friends with the Wendong society and intended to woo it. Then, the Green Gang also followed. Chapter 1 Rise_How the Villain is Made 1. By the end of 1996, the Wendong society had developed into a formal gang of no less than 500 people, with 10 large discos in the south of the border and 7 nightclubs. Xie Wendong has also become a popular figure in the south of the border, with no less than 5 affiliated gangs under the Wendong society. At the end of December, there was a ghost disco. "Brother Dong, come on, let me propose a toast to you." Li Shuang held up a glass of wine and his voice was buzzing. The 3 eyes laughed and said, "Old fatty, drink as soon as you get out of the hospital, is that all right?" Li Shuang shook his head and said, "Grass, I almost didn't suffocate me in the hospital these months. Now that you're out, why don't you have a good time? Brother Dong, don't you think?" Sitting in the middle, Xie Wendong smiled but said nothing, picked up the glass and drank it. When Li Shuang saw this, he blinked at the 3-eyed Mimi, drank the wine in the glass and exclaimed happily. 3 eyes had a toast with the others. Zhang Yanjiang asked one side, "Brother Dong, the Brother League has drawn us into the partnership. What do you think we should do?" Li Shuang shook his head and said, "Grass, now we are the boss. What's the point when we go to the Brotherhood to be soldiers?" Zhang Yanjiang said, "Brother Shuang is right, but if we don't agree, I'm afraid they'll deal with us." Li Shuang said loudly, "What are you afraid of? We haven't done anything. If Brother League dares to mess with us, we'll go and level him out." Zhang Yanjiang shook his head and looked at Xie Wendong. Xie Wendong said with a smile, "I do not intend to join the Brotherhood, but as Yan Jiang said, if a simple refusal will make it difficult for the other party to lift, I think an alliance with them is good for both sides." The 3rd eye said, "It's good to form an alliance. I'm afraid they won't agree to it. What if they want to bring us into the partnership?" Xie Wendong said, "If this is the case, there is nothing we can do about it. We have no choice but to face them." Zhang Yanjiang said, "But the strength of the Brotherhood is much higher than ours." Xie Wendong said with a smile, "But there is still a tiger behind them. As long as a little attention will bite him, the tiger will contain them." He. 3 eyes said, "Brother Dong, are you talking about the tigers?" "That's right." Xie Wendong nodded. The tigers want to monopolize the underworld of the J-City to facilitate their underground trading. The Brotherhood and the Youth Gang are a thorn in their side and want to wipe out these 2 gangs all the time. The Brotherhood dare not take action against us easily. Zhang Yanjiang said, "Brother Dong, this is actually a good opportunity. The Axe Gang is already scattered, and their chassis is not far from us, so we might as well take advantage of the current underworld chaos to grab them. In this way, our power can also develop into the middle of the city." Xie Wendong nodded admiringly and said, "What Yan Jiang meant just now is exactly what I want to say. Although we are the leaders in the south of the border, after all, we are far away from the city and cannot become a climate. It is imperative to take down the remnants of the Axe Gang." Li Shuang was so happy that he didn't think that one day he would be able to compete with a giant like the Axe Gang, and his blood boiled up and said in a loud voice, "Brother Dong, I'll do whatever you want, but I must let me fight." Gao Chong laughed on the side and said, "You go. It's healed, isn't it? You've been hit 17 times and it hasn't made you stop." Hearing Gao Chong's words, Li Shuang blushed, looked around and saw that everyone was there. Chapter 1 Rise _ How the Villain is Made One. Looking at him with a smile on his face, some of them couldn't come down to Taiwan. When he went to Gao Chong, he grabbed him by the neck and said loudly, "Don't you dare say that. If I hadn't protected you last time, you would have received no less knife than me. It's heartless of me to strangle you." Gao Chong was so stuck that he shook his head and had no choice but to use Li Shuang's most feared move. Two hands reached out to Li Shuang's armpit and touched it randomly. Fat people are generally ticklish. Li Shuang is no exception. The hand that grabbed Gao Chong's neck also loosened, smiled and said, "Chong, brother Chong, Wrong, you stop." Everyone looked at the two people rolling together, and there was a lot of laughter in the ghost. After a while, Zhang Yanjiang said to Xie Wendong, "Brother Dong, there are several forces in the territory of the Axe Gang. Who do you think we should attack first?" Shernan used to be the territory of the Axe Gang, but after the death of the boss, it was swallowed up by other gangs, and now there are 5 forces that can barely hold their feet. These 5 forces all regard themselves as the orthodoxy of the Axe Gang and do not yield to each other. Among them, Zhu Yupeng is the most powerful, mainly because of the secret support of the Brotherhood. Second, Lu Qing and his gang. The power is not to be underestimated, many brothers but also willing to work for him. There is also He Shueyong and his gang, who are barely in the middle of power, but are cunning, changeable, and extremely unpopular. The remaining 2 groups are led by Shan Xiaoyun and Zhang Hong, and their strength is very average. Xie Wendong thought about it for a moment and said, "Let's start with He Shueyong." Zhang Yanjiang froze and said strangely, "He Shueyong is so cunning that we may not be able to take advantage of him." Xie Wendong smiled and said, "That's why I chose him." Everyone looked at Xie Wendong speechless. New Year's Day is approaching, and the school is also facing a tense final exam. Students in all schools are studying nervously during this period. The only exception is number 1 middle school. In the exam here, even people who have not graduated from primary school can score more than 100 points per subject. 150 is a full score. The teachers in the prison basically close their eyes in the examination room, and the students below can do whatever they like. The students in some classes are more considerate of their teachers and specially buy some newspapers and put them at the desk during the exam. If the prison teacher is too bored, they can read newspapers to pass the time. Such sensible students and teachers like it very much, so the score of the class will be very high. That day, Xie Wendong was listening to the teacher and a ball of paper hit him on the head. Xie Wendong looked around and saw Gao Huiyu climbing on the window between the classroom and the corridor and waving to himself, meaning to let him out. Xie Wendong hesitated for a moment, looked at the teacher on the podium, and went out. When he came to the corridor, Xie Wendong whispered, "Xiaoyu, I'm in class now. What's the hurry to find me?" Gao Huiyu looked at him angrily. "Am I not as important as your class?" Xie Wendong said, "That's not what I meant. What do you want with me?" Gao Huiyu said, "Come to my house in the evening. My brother wants to see you." Xie Wendong is not surprised. Now the gangs in the J-City are in chaos, and the gangs are eager to expand their strength. When the boss of the Green Gang finds himself, there is no doubt that he has his eye on the Wendong Society, whose strength has risen sharply. Nodded and said, "That's right. All right, I'll be there after school." Gao Huiyu worried and said, "You and..." Chapter 1 Rise _ How the Villain is Made One. When my brother meets, he'd better follow him. He's in a bad mood, and it may be a matter of the gang, but he won't let me know. Anyway, even if he has a bad temper, he doesn't know what to do with you. Seeing that Gao Huiyu was concerned, Xie Wendong smiled and said, "Don't worry, it's all right. I thought that it was not because of the rise of Wendong society that I wanted to woo myself. In the past, when they were unknown, the Green Gang would not even look at themselves, but they did not expect that they would take the initiative to find themselves now." Xie Wendong sighed secretly. After school in the evening, Xie Wendong and Gao Huiyu walked out of the teaching building together. "This is not good. I am a big boy, let a girl ride a bike to carry. I think I'd better go by car." Xie Wendong heard Gao Huiyu say that he would carry himself on a motorcycle and protested loudly. Gao Huiyu rolled her eyes on the motorcycle and said loudly, "Hey, how come your thoughts belong to antique level? Why are you carried by a girl? Or you can carry me, as long as you can ride." Xie Wendong blushed and whispered, "I can't do this." Gao Huiyu knew he wouldn't. She patted the back seat and said, "Come on up, little brother. Sister, I have something to say to you. Don't waste time. Hurry up." Xie Wendong braved his head and sat behind Gao Huiyu. The unique fragrance of the girl spread to his nose. Xie Wendong felt that his head was blank and he didn't know where to put his hands. Gao Huiyu looked back at him and said with a smile, "Hold me in your arms, or don't blame me if you fall." Xie Wendong listened and looked around. When the school was over, there were many students and he was a little hesitant. Seeing him like this, Gao Huiyu was angry and secretly said, "Son of a bitch, holding me will die." Thinking of this, Gao Huiyu put an evil smile on her face, stepped on the clutch, and the motorcycle ran forward with a whoosh. Xie Wendong was thinking about hugging or not, when the car suddenly started to drive forward, scaring him instinctively to hold Gao Huiyu. But the car stopped immediately, and Gao Huiyu flushed and looked back at Xie Wendong. The corner of her mouth moved, and finally she opened her mouth and shouted, "You can put your hand down." Xie Wendong was so shocked that his ears were buzzing. He looked at Gao Huiyu strangely and wondered what was wrong with her. Seeing Xie Wendong's innocent face, Gao Huiyu squeezed a few words between her teeth. "Your hand." "No, no, no. No, no, no." "My hand?" Xie Wendong moved manually and felt that the palms were very soft, and a sense of comfort that he had never felt before passed on to his body. Xie Wendong looked sideways, then looked at Gao Huiyu's face, slowly withdrew his hand, and as soon as his head was low, he hated why there was no hole in the ground. It turned out that when Xie Wendong was nervous just now, he pressed Gao Huiyu's firm chest with his hands hurriedly. Gao Huiyu wanted to say a few words about Xie Wendong, but there was a kind of unspeakable pleasure and joy in her heart. She swallowed the words on the edge of her mouth and blushed and said, "Now hug my waist." This time Xie Wendong was unusually obedient and honestly hugged Gao Huiyu's slim waist. Xie Wendong made a motorcycle for the first time since childhood, and Gao Huiyu drove very fast. Watching the scenery on both sides fly back quickly, Xie Wendong's heartbeat rose rapidly and unwittingly hugged Gao Huiyu's waist more tightly. Gao Huiyu smiled secretly and turned around and said, "Take it easy, fool. I'm almost out of breath." Seeing that she was driving so fast, Xie Wendong dared to look back and said loudly, "Sister, you look ahead. Chapter 1 Rise _ How the Villain is Made One. All right, it's very dangerous." Gao Huiyu glanced at her mouth and said with a smile, "He is still the boss of a gang. He is so timid. It has nothing to do with the size of courage. I just don't want to be confused and go to the hospital." "Bah, raven mouth." Gao Huiyu scolded angrily. Xie Wendong was so happy that he forgot all about it and said loudly, "Xiaoyu, what do you want to say to me? Don't look back and tell me. I can hear you." Seeing that Gao Huiyu was about to turn around, Xie Wendong quickly added. Gao Huiyu exclaimed, "It's nothing. I just learned a few new dishes recently. I'll cook them for you after talking to my brother later." "No way? Is that all?" Xie Wendong sighed and leaned his head against Gao Huiyu's back. In a semi-coma, I soon arrived at Gao Huiyu's house. After the two entered the room, Xie Wendong saw a man sitting on the sofa in the square hall. At the age of 25 or 26, He has white skin and handsome appearance, and Gao Huiyu has some imagination. You don't have to ask Xie Wendong to know that this person should be Gao Zhen, the boss of the Green Gang, who covers the sky with one hand in J City. The man saw Gao Huiyu leading a teenager into the room, looked up and down for a while, stood up and came to Xie Wendong, stretched out his hand and said, "Hello, you must be Xie Wendong. I often hear Xiaoyu talk about you. I'm Gao Zhen, Xiaoyu's brother." Xie Wendong held Gao Zhen's hand and said politely, "I've heard about you for a long time, but I haven't had the chance to meet you all the time." Gao Zhen smiled and said, "Since you were Xiaoyu's friend, that is, my friend, you can be my eldest brother like Xiaoyu." Xie Wendong froze, did not expect the Green Gang boss so kind, then said, "Then I will climb, Brother Gao." Gao Zhen sat Xie Wendong on the sofa and chatted, "How long have you and Xiaoyu known each other?" Although it was small talk, Xie Wendong dared not be careless in the face of Gao Zhen and said, "I've known each other since the first day of school." Gao Zhen took a box of Zhonghua from his jacket pocket and handed it to Xie Wendong. Xie Wendong shook his head and politely said no. Gao Zhen did not force him to smoke and said, "Xiaoyu has a childish temper. Can you get used to it when you are together?" Without waiting for Xie Wendong to speak, Gao Huiyu shook Gao Zhen's arm and said shyly, "Brother, why do you always say that about others?" No. No. Gao Zhen smiled, clapped Gao Huiyu's hand and said, "Well, after you just finished talking about your childish temper, it has been exposed so quickly." Seeing Xie Wendong smiling at herself, Gao Huiyu blushed and said, "Ignore you. I'll cook." Then he ran to the kitchen. "My sister." No. Gao Zhen looked at his sister's back and shook her head, but his eyes were full of love. Xie Wendong saw that Gao Zhen was not generally good to his sister, and his view of this person also changed somewhat. He smiled and said, "Brother Gao, Xiaoyu is so lovely because she has such a temper." Gao Zhen looked at Xie Wendong admiringly. Feng turned to Xie Wendong and said, "I think you know who I am." Xie Wendong nodded and said, "I heard Xiaoyu say that Brother Gao is the boss of the Green Gang." Gao Zhen smiled and said, "I have heard your brothers talk about you. You are young, and you are also the overlord of one side." Chapter 2 Alliances _ How Bad Guys Are Formed 1. Xie Wendong said, "What am I? Compared with Brother Gao, there is a difference between heaven and earth." Gao Zhen sighed and said, "The Green Gang is also in troubled times. My boss is not so easy to sit on the surface." Xie Wendong looked at Gao Zhen and said, "I think Brother Gao is talking about the tigers. With the strength of the youth gang, I don't think I should be afraid of them." Gao Zhen shook his head and said, "There are still a lot of outsiders who don't know. Tell me about your Wendong meeting. Don't you plan to expand outward?" Xie Wendong said secretly, "Here comes the point," said with a smile, "Yes, but we are just a small gang. How can we have the strength to expand outward? Now that the underworld is in chaos, if you are not careful, you will be doomed forever." Gao Zhen looked at Xie Wendong and said slowly, "You are too modest. I have also heard of the strength of the Wendong society. There are as many as hundreds of people below. Moreover, the drug trade is getting bigger and bigger, so you can no longer be regarded as a small gang with your current strength." Xie Wendong said, "Brother Gao thinks highly of me." Gao Zhen asked directly, "If you let your Wendong join the Green Gang, I wonder if you would like it?" Xie Wendong shook his head and said, "I haven't thought about it yet. Besides, it's a big deal, and I can't decide by myself." Gao Zhen understood what Xie Wendong meant. He heard that the Brotherhood had also courted the Wendong society, but to no avail. The Green Gang and the Brotherhood have always been at odds with each other, but the strength of the two sides is equal, and no one can touch the other. The Wendong society is a gang that has sprung up suddenly, and its strength is not to be underestimated. Whether it is the youth gang or the Brotherhood, as long as Wendong Hui is pulled to his own side, his strength will be higher than that of the other side. Gao Zhen understood this and didn't want to be too tough. He stepped back and said, "Since the Wendong brothers don't want to join the Green Gang, I won't force you. But I hope our two gangs can form an alliance and help each other. What do you think? Xie Wendong froze slightly. He did not expect Gao Zhen to say that if he really formed an alliance with the Green Gang, it would undoubtedly be extremely beneficial to him, at least one less enemy and one more friend in the expansion. Thinking of this, Xie Wendong said, Brother Gao is very happy to say this, but he is afraid of dragging down the Green Gang. Gao Zhen saw that Xie Wendong had a tendency to agree and said with a smile, How could it be? The Wendong brothers are young heroes who can control the border and south area in just a few months. The youth gang may even need your help in the future. Xie Wendong smiled and said, Brother Gao's words make me ashamed. My little brother is very advanced. As soon as Gao Zhen was pleased, he stood up and said, Well, from today on, the Green Gang will formally form an alliance with the Wendong Society, and they will cooperate with each other in the future and never go back on their promises. With that, he extended his palm to Xie Wendong. When Xie Wendong saw this, he stood up and high-fived Gao Zhen. The form of alliance seems simple, but it has strong restraint. The underworld pays the most attention to a letter, and looks down on those who speak out of their ears, and such people are also difficult to become magnificent. In particular, the boss of a big gang weighs 1,000 pounds. Gao Zhen took the initiative to form an alliance with the Wendong Society and was indeed helpless. Outside the underworld of the city, there is the high pressure of the Tiger Gang, and there are constant disputes within the city. Although the Green Gang is one of the big three, it also feels pressured. The Axe Gang is a case in point. As the leader of the Green Gang, Gao Zhen's position is also unstable. Chapter 2 Alliances _ How Bad Guys Are Formed 1. There are strong enemies on the outside and disasters on the inside, and the elders in the gang deceive him young and covetously look at the position of the master. Now Gao Zhen is eager to cultivate his own power to consolidate his position, and what he sees most is the newly rising Xie Wendong. Of course, there are reasons for Xiaoyu on the one hand. After the alliance between the two, the relationship is also a lot closer. Gao Zhen pulled Xie Wendong and said, Brother, do you really have no plans to expand? Xie Wendong said openly, No, that's a lie. I'm going to push into the territory of the Axe Gang. Gao Zhen thought for a moment and said, There are 5 forces there, and the relationship between them is even more complex, and there are external forces involved. Brother, if you don't like it, expand there or you'll get yourself on fire. With the strength of the youth gang, they do not dare to commit crimes easily. As soon as Xie Wendong was shocked, it seemed that the territory of the Axe Gang was not as simple as he had imagined. When he went back, he had to think about it and asked, Brother Gao, what forces are secretly supporting the Axe Gang? Gao Zhen said with a smile, The power of Lu Qing is secretly supported by the Green Gang. The Tigers and the Brotherhood also have influence among them. Xie Wendong was surprised to find that the information he had received was not accurate, and he dared to be afraid of the plan he had made. If he really advanced hastily, Wendong would not be far from the day of extinction. Seeing that Xie Wendong did not speak, Gao Zhen continued, Now the various forces in the territory of the Axe Gang are in a mess, and the big gangs dare not intervene easily, so it is better to be careful, brother. Xie Wendong nodded his thanks, but he didn't give up in his heart and planned to go back and discuss with his brothers before making a decision. The two talked for a while, and Gao Zhen felt that although Xie Wendong was young, he knew no less than himself, and he had a unique view of things. Gao Zhen appreciated Xie Wendong very much and secretly decided that he must be caught. Otherwise, he would be the greatest enemy. When the two were talking energetically, Gao Huiyu came out of the kitchen and said loudly, Stop talking. It's time to eat. Xie Wendong and Gao Zhen smiled at each other, stood up and walked onto the table. Gao Huiyu said to Xie Wendong, Wendong, help me with the dishes. Xie Wendong agreed and went to the kitchen. After entering the kitchen, Gao Huiyu pulled him and asked, How's it going? How did it go with my brother? Xie Wendong said with a smile, Very good. Gao Huiyu was still worried and asked, What did you talk about? My brother didn't embarrass you, did he? Xie Wendong saw that Gao Huiyu looked concerned and felt a trace of sweetness in his heart, and honestly said, No, your brother invited Wendong and the Youth Gang Alliance. Gao Huiyu was stunned and asked urgently, "Did you say yes?" Seeing Xie Wendong nodding, Gao Huiyu breathed a sigh of relief and said happily, "You are lucky to be able to make an alliance with my brother, but my brother does not agree with others to give money on the poll." Xie Wendong said with a smile, "Yes, I have taken great advantage this time." "Really?" Seeing Xie Wendong teasing herself, Gao Huiyu secretly touched her little hand on Xie Wendong's arm and caressed it carefully. Gao Huiyu and Xie Wendong came out of the kitchen with a flushed face and a bright smile. And the man's face was livid and his teeth were cracked. When Gao Zhen saw this, he laughed and knew at a glance that Xie Wendong had been bullied by his sister. Chapter 2 Alliances _ How Bad Guys Are Formed 1. Negative, Smile said to Gao Huiyu. "Xiaoyu, Wendong is a guest, you should be polite." Gao Huiyu hugged Gao Zhen's arm and said, "Brother, I am very kind to Wendong. Ask him if you don't believe me." "Right, Wendong?" Xie Wendong sighed, endured the pain in his arm, smiled and nodded and said, "Yes, Brother Gao, Xiaoyu is very kind to me." No. No. Very good." Xie Wendong's words made Gao Zhen laugh again. "I thought Xie Wendong was the overlord on the outside, the boss of the whole border south. But he was like a different person in front of Xiaoyu. It seems that he still likes Xiaoyu very much in his heart." Then the three sat down happily. Of course, Xie Wendong is an exception. Watching Gao Zhen eat the dark dishes made by Gao Huiyu, he praised him for being delicious from time to time. Xie Wendong secretly spoke, admiring Gao Zhen as the boss of the Green Gang, with the verve of Mount Tai pressing the top, without changing his face. When Xie Wendong got up to leave, it was almost 8 o'clock. Gao Zhen took him to the door and spoke for a while. Finally, he gave Xie Wendong a business card and said, "If you have any difficulties in the future, you can call me." Xie Wendong nodded and left his phone number to Gao Zhen. When he turned around to leave, he was stopped by Gao Zhen. "If you need a gun, I can help you. The Green Gang still has a lot of arms." Xie Wendong was moved and said with a smile, "Thank you, Brother Gao. Wendong society really needs a batch of arms now. I don't know how much the youth gang can come up with." Gao Zhen thought for a moment and said, "AK can come up with 50, but there are many in the May 4th movement." Xie Wendong nodded and said, "Okay, Brother Gao, I will find you when I need it." Gao Zhen nodded and said yes. Xie Wendong said goodbye to the Gao Zhen brothers and sisters again before turning away. On the way home, Xie Wendong thought about the conversation with Gao Zhen just now and felt that this man was very generous and upright, and that he and his alliance should still be able to rest assured. It's just that Gao Zhen's character is not suitable for the boss of the club, because he lacks a bit of domineering. The next day, Xie Wendong found Xian, and everyone sat neatly in the inner room waiting for Xie Wendong to speak. Xie Wendong first looked at the three eyes and said, "Brother Zhang, tell me about this month's income." After listening 3 times, he took out a small black leather briefcase from behind, opened it, took out a stack of documents, looked at it and said, "Brother Dong, the income from watching the market is 100,000, but the white powder is—" No. It's 3 million. I paid for it. 200,000 to Chen Bureau, 500,000 to the brothers, and, by the way, there are several small gangs that will give us 30,000. Three eyes hurriedly flipped through the documents, saying one sentence after another. Xie Wendong shook his head when he saw this, and the three eyes said that the account was already sweaty and breathed out. In the past, when the Wendong society did not develop, the management of the gang's accounts was relatively simple, and there was no pressure in the third eye. Now the income and expenditure of the gang is getting bigger and bigger, and there are more and more, but Three Eyes really feel powerless. Sighing, Three Eyes said, "Brother Dong, don't let me take care of the account anymore. How am I fit to do this? Let me fight. I'm not afraid of anyone. But this. No. Li Shuang smiled and said, "What? The financial fans are going to hand over the financial power. Haha, if you don't do it, I'll do it." Gao Chong pushed Li Shuang, glanced at his mouth and said, "Just you. If you are in charge of the accounts, you will not be able to help."